Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis. Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, January the 17th. I am super excited that you are with me, whether you are joining us live or you are watching the replay. Thank you for being a part of the Chalk Talk tribe. Before we get started, we always have to let you know how we're able to do this each and every week for 9.5 years, going strong now. Of course, that a lot has to do with not just our time in producing the show, but the people who support the work. The title sponsor, again, for this month is the World Youth Foundation in collaboration with the African American Male Wellness Agency. You've heard me talk a lot on this show about an upcoming walk that's coming to Houston in April. You will continue to hear more about that as we get a little closer to it. You had a chance to listen to and meet, if you didn't already know him, Pastor Jamel Johnson a few weeks ago, and he talked about one of the things that they're doing on the way to this walk with all the fabulous things that'll be happening that weekend and screenings and resources and opportunities for African American men is a program called Real Men, Real Talk. So as soon as they have the date and they've decided on the next date and location, I will of course share that with you. But remember to stay tuned because everybody needs to support this work and this walk. Also, I love Jika, our long time partner. It's all about health and wellness, and it's about being healthy and well and giving your body something it needs, since we're talking about wellness, in more of a natural state. And I Love Jinka is a turmeric paste or powder or capsule, and what it does is it helps to eliminate inflammation in your body. Of course, inflammation is really the root of most illnesses that we have. Something is inflamed. And so this I Love Jinka product is great in order to help you reduce inflammation, improve your immune system, and a host of other great outcomes. And so if you are in the Houston area, you can of course get I Love Jinka at HEB stores. And you can get it online at ilovejinka.com. They'll soon come on and share with us their relationship with the military, to where veterans and people in the military will have access through their bases and their online portals. But if you are in the Houston area, Southeast Texas, you can get it at HEB, and this is what it looks like and where you find it.
Here at HEB, in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Look at a lot of Jinka sale. Look at that. Jinka.
I Love Jinka. Get yours today. Also, Kimmy Treats. You know, it's January, and many of you were talking about you're going to eat healthier and you're going to be healthier as you are kicking off the new year. And what I say is, just do something small every day. But whatever you do, we know it's always about our diet. But you got to have some snacks, right? Well, you are in luck. You can get Kimmy Treats, the healthy vegan popcorn. And for those of you who say, Kim, what do you mean vegan popcorn? There's no animal products in it. It's made with coconut oil. It's made with clean spices that you'll see on the label. You can get those. They're back available at Sunshine's Vegan Deli in Houston, Texas, in the Med Center NRG area, or you can get it online at kimmytreats.com. You get your vegan popcorn today. There are 3 great flavors, and you can also get your organic hand whipped body butter. Here's what you should expect. KimmyTreats.com. Go there. You can order it online. Ships all over the country. All right, so let's get into it, everybody. Last week, this time, we were talking about the fact that the Houston Texans had fired their second head coach in 2 years, right? 2 years, 2 coaches, and that there's a new coaching search underway. It is underway. I'm going to share with you the people who have interviewed, the coaches that have interviewed to this point. But before we do that, I'm going to let you hear from General Manager Nick Caserio from last week. I don't think I played this piece of sound when he was asked some pointed questions about his role and what might be different. This is Texans general manager Nick Caserio.
Talked about the process. You talked about, I guess, kind of ignoring people and not listening to enough people. Why was that? How involved was Jack used to be in the previous coaching processes? And you've also mentioned like 5 times now, if I'm not the guy, I'm done. Do you fear for your job? Like what is to be made if you mentioned that now like 5 times kind of?
Yeah, Landry, I think in the end, like, it's about accountability. So again, like, I'm not going to sit up here and, nobody's happy with where we are. I think we're all disappointed about the result of the season. I'm going to work my ass off, like I've done since the day I walked in the building, and that's my commitment. That's what I'm going to continue to do. So that's not going to change. As far as our process, I wouldn't say it's not about an individual, what we've necessarily done in the past. I think I would say, utilizing the resources that we have available, maybe that we didn't have available prior, and some of the way that we're piecing this together and how we're constructing it. So I think that's more illustrative of probably where we are. I don't know if that answered your question, but I think that's a little bit more clarity and direction in terms of how we're going about it, utilizing the resources that are available to us, and then utilizing it to the best of our ability and trying to use it to our advantage so we can make the right decision.
So that was General Manager Nick Caserio. And if you followed me or you've seen me or any of the interviews I've done over the past week, what I said is that the Texans probably do need a new process. And I think the process should start at the top, including the general manager. And let me be very clear. I'm not big on advocating for people to lose their jobs. It just seems like if the most important thing that you had to do the last 2 years was to hire a coach, and you got that wrong both times. And that's an integral part of what has to happen in building a team. And they are in a rebuild. It seems like they continue to start over. I'm just curious about why there was no change there, but we'll see what happens. I want to also now share with you some of, wait, let me do this. I need to stop that. All right, who some of the coaches are that they've interviewed to this point. So I'm going to share, because the Texans have been posting, Cal McNair talked about being very transparent and being more involved. And so they were transparent last year in terms of letting us know the coaches they'd interviewed, except when they announced that they hired Lovie Smith, because he's not somebody they mentioned they interviewed. At any rate, I digress. Here is, let me pull up the Houston Texans. They've done as I say, a pretty good job of sharing who they've interviewed. So you see Sean Payton. Of course, Sean Payton would require them giving up a draft pick because his contract, he's still under contract with the Saints. I mean, his contract hasn't expired. He has said he expects that to be probably, it would probably take a mid-first round pick. They have also interviewed Jonathan Gannon, the Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator, Shane, the Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator. They've talked to Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. So they have interviewed quite a few people so far. I say quite a few people. Gannon is a name that has, surfaced last year. I think he's probably their favorite. I know Sean Payton excites some people. I've heard a lot of people talk about how great Sean Payton can be. He obviously has the best track record, great experience, is a Super Bowl champion coach. In an interview, he talked about, he would consider coming to Houston. Obviously, if you're going to take the interview, you have to say you're going to consider it. Otherwise, why would you take the interview? I personally would be surprised if Sean Payton were to come to Houston and take this job. That's just me. I think there are other places that are interested in Sean Payton who have said, who offer a little more. Yes, Houston has draft capital. Sean Payton has worked closely with Mickey Loomis, who is the general manager of the New Orleans Saints. He was the general manager, when Sean Payton was there. It'll be different for him being with Nick Caserio. Nick Caserio is a person that says he's got the final say about, personnel moves. I don't know. One of the things I have heard from Sean Payton, in interviews that I've seen and read of him, at this point is that he would like to go someplace where there is an established quarterback. Well, the Houston Texans don't have that. And even if they get one in the draft, that's going to be a rookie. It won't be established. So I don't know. I just personally find it, I just find it hard to believe that Sean Payton would come to Houston. I know that Denver is looking at Sean Payton. There's some people that wonder whether or not the Chargers job will be open. The Arizona Cardinals have asked to speak to Sean Payton. They, of course, have Kyler Murray. So we'll see. We will see. I don't know what the Houston Texans are going to do. And I've had people ask me, so who do you think they're going to select? I really don't know. I am curious to see what they decide. Good morning, Johnny Cole, one of the best college coaches around. It's good to see you be a part of today's show. Thank you for joining us here on Chalk Talk. And Coach Cole, he was told to get rid of Lovey. Well, I mean, by the owner, I don't know. I'm on Kirby. I've heard some different things. I've heard that there are a lot of really good candidates this year, but that's the same thing they said last year, right? Hey, good morning, Ellen, my sister. Both of my sisters are on. Good morning, Sylvia. Welcome, Ellen. Peaches, please give Angel my love. Angel is spending some time with her Aunt Peaches for a few days. I will go and get her later. But listen, it is going to be interesting to see which direction they go and what they decide. And I figure they'll make a decision fairly soon because they don't want to drag it out because that just wouldn't be a great look. We shall see. The other thing that's happening with the Houston Texans is they invited some of the media over last week and to talk about their the fact that they're exploring a uniform change, and much of what they talked about is confidential. Like, we can't really share it, but what I can tell you is the reasons for a uniform change obviously are not just about aesthetics. There's some other reasons that are valid, that make sense. They're paying attention to fans. And so what I would say is, if you say, well, Kim, who cares about uniforms? I get it. Put them in tutus. Just give them a coach and get them a roster and let them start winning. I get that. That's important. But I also know that two things can be true. The operation side, the football operation side, can be a little dysfunctional. It has been, so perhaps now will become more functional. We don't know yet, or at least I don't know yet. And then the marketing and the business side of the organization can also be headed and doing some things and headed in the right direction. So two things, okay, can be true, and I think both of those things are in fact true. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But what I can tell you is there's some exciting things happening along the way. They're doing focus groups. They're getting input from fans and players and former players about this process. Not the process, but about what they're considering and why. And it is a lengthy process. If they do come up with a new design or some new things as it relates to uniforms, it would not be unveiled until April of 2024. That much I can tell you, not much else, without giving up some of the things they're working on that are just confidential because the league has a process. So I wanted to share that with you. You may say, I don't care about uniforms, but listen, you've got to be able to, like I said, you've got to be able to ski on multiple tracks, right? You got to work on this football operations piece because obviously that's the most important, and you've got to do the other side. And I say that because, I've covered this team a long time. I was at the owners meeting in 2000 in Atlanta, at that hotel in Atlanta, when the NFL granted Houston and Bob McNair the franchise. And so I've seen it from the beginning. I've been out of the market a little bit when I worked in different cities, but I've covered this team really from its inception. And I remember them not having some seasons that weren't great. I remember them being 2-14 and people still showing up and being in the building. They're not showing up, right? And I know that there's a lot of reasons. I hear a lot about the pandemic. I get it, but the pandemic happened in every NFL city in the country. And what's happening here in Houston seems to be perhaps because I pay more attention because it's the stadium that I'm in 8 or 9 times a year, or however many home games they have, and it's the team I cover. But clearly, the pandemic made an impact, right? People are looking closely at how they spend their money, and they're making decisions like, yeah, is this something that I want to spend my money on? Is this some place that I want to go because I got used to not being places and I can watch it on television if in fact I'm doing that? I get that, but I also believe that they have lost some fans, a generation of fans, for a number of reasons. I talked to 2 different families last week that said, I've been a season ticket holder. We've been a season ticket holder from the beginning. We are not renewing this year. It is an embarrassment what's happening with the organization. One family said, and you fired another black coach the 2nd year in a row. You fired another coach 2 years in a row. And so it's a number of things that has people going, I'm not so sure I want to do this. I'm going to step back and not participate. That's a real issue. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what they end up doing and how they navigate this. Hey, good morning, my friend, our legal expert, Charles Lamar Drayton. Thank you for being a part of the show. We got to get you on. There's some legal things we're going to talk about shortly. But listen, the Houston Texans are in a full-fledged rebuild. Who knows what they're going to do in terms of the draft? Who knows which quarterback they rate as being 1, 2, or 3? I know many fans are excited about Bryce Young. I get it. He's an exciting player. The Texans don't have the number 1 pick, but would they have selected Bryce Young with that number 1 pick? C.J. Stroud from Ohio State has declared he is coming out, although there was some conversation last week from some folk that said, he may stay in school and, get one of those NIL deals because why would he want to come to the Texans? His agent is David Mulugeta, and that was Deshaun's agent. And I'm like, listen, it's a business. I just don't really know that David would, not want his players to come to Houston, or is Houston not going to want a player because they signed with David? Then they're going to miss a lot. Teams would miss out on a lot because David is the guy, especially when it comes to quarterbacks these days. They're signing with him. So C.J. Stroud is coming out and will be available in the draft. Who knows which player the Texans would decide to take? It may even depend on whatever coach they hire. I have no idea. A lot's going to happen this offseason between now and the draft. There are some who say they shouldn't even take a quarterback with the first pick because they're still not going to be good next year. They've got to get some other pieces. You got to protect that quarterback. You're going to have to shore up that offensive line, and you're going to have to get some skill position players. And on defense, you got to get some pass rushers. You're going to have to do. They've just got a lot of needs. So I have no idea which way they're going. We have a lot of time to talk about it on this show and other places. But they are in an all-out rebuild. No head coach yet, but they are interviewing people. They have also asked to talk to DeMarco Ryans and to interview him. D'Amico, I'm sorry. Another guy that I'd be surprised if he comes here. Another guy that I'd even be surprised if they would even really offer him the job. I think the Texans are smart enough this time around to know that there's some people they just should interview. And D'Amico Ryans is one of the hot coaching prospects, and he falls in that category. Let me throw this out. Can somebody, perhaps, that's listening to the show or follows the show, if you're a part of the audience, even if you watch it later, can you just help me understand how Eric Bieniemy has fallen off the charts as being an option for a head coach in the National Football League? I don't get it. And I heard somebody say yesterday on some show that his chances are done. He'll never be a head coach. How is that possible? He's the offensive coordinator, but it's interesting. He's the offensive coordinator, and when things are going well, the head coach gets the credit. Andy Reid. It's because it's Andy Reid. He's not doing anything. And when the Chiefs have struggled offensively or had any hiccups, it's because Bieniemy. Make it make sense, somebody. I just don't know how a guy who has been the offensive coordinator for a team that's had a lot of offensive success in recent years is not a hot head coaching prospect. Anyway, The NFL is a strange bird, and I know Charles is like, "Yep, that's probably why I don't follow them," among other things. But it is a strange league and a strange situation. All right, so from the National Football League to the NBA. All right, the Houston Rockets are another Houston area team that is in a full-out rebuild. A little bit of history when Stephen Silas, who was in is this his third full season or fourth season? So this year they have a rookie of Jabari Smith. So this is his third season. I'm trying to remember how long he's been here. When he took the job, he was not taking the job of a team that was in a rebuild. He was taking the job of a team that had two former MVPs in James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Of course, Westbrook jumped ship pretty early and said, "Deuces, I'm out. I don't want to be on a team that is owned by Tillman Fertitta, and I ain't real excited about playing with James Harden anymore." And then James Harden followed suit shortly thereafter and said, "Yeah, I don't want to be here. I want out. I want to go someplace else." And so you go from having those two players to basically a lottery team, right? So that was in year one. There was so much chaos in them all. They had John Wall that came in from the Wizards in the trade for Westbrook, because you had to have a trade that, you got to match the money. So that happened. And then the John Wall thing, in year two, when they drafted Jalen Green and Josh Christopher, and it was clear that they were very, very young, right? The average age, if you don't include Eric Gordon, was like 19 or 20. It was really young. They are still really young, but now they're, all the young guys, with the exception of the ones that were drafted last year, Ty and Jabari and Tyrese, and the other guys, the Jalen Greens and the Josh Christopher, those guys are like, what, 20 now, 21? They're older, and then you got the veteran of Jayshawn Tate, who is a whopping, 25, 26. My point is, they're still very, very young. They struggled. Let me just tell you, they were in Los Angeles last night, and it was not a great win for them. The final, they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers 140-132. Now, they scored 132 points, but you're not going to win a lot of games when you give it up 140, okay? It's just not going to happen. They're 0-10 in their last 10 games. So they're in the middle of a 10-game losing streak. It is not a great look. And, of course, what happens is people start saying, well, will Stephen Silas survive this rebuild? I don't know whether he will or not. You'd like to see the coach who's been a part of, this rebuild, if you will. You'd like to see him have an opportunity to, let me pull it up. I'm going to show you let you hear from Stephen Silas after last night. You'd like to think that he would have a chance to see it through. I don't know. But the team needs a win, and a win in the worst way. They come home and they play Charlotte tomorrow night at the Toyota Center. And this is Stephen Silas after the game last night. Not only did they lose, LeBron James dropped 48 points. And so here's Coach Silas in the interview after the game last night.
It ranks right at the top. I mean, at his age, 48 points, 9 assists, 0 turnovers. Made every big play. Made the free throws when it counted. What hurt us was the threes, the rhythm threes that he was making. But yeah, this was, as far as the games that I've seen. I mean, I've seen him have some really good ones, and this is in the top 5 for sure.
Jabari told him during the game, you played your first game against my dad. You hear something like that, you can look at Jabari's face and see how does that hit you as somebody who was at both?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, Jabari's 19, and we got a bunch of young guys. We got Jabari 19 and Jalen 20 and Alpy 20. And LeBron was I remember when he was 19, like these guys. But yeah, it's crazy for that to be such a coincidence or whatever it is that LeBron played his first game against Jabari's dad.
So that was Coach Silas last night after the game, talking about LeBron, and there was a clip, and you may have seen it online or even on air, where Jabari Smith was saying to LeBron James just a question that Coach Silas was asked about, like, it's funny, man. You played your first game against you played against my father, and now Jabari is also playing against him, and in this game he dropped 48 points. So the Rockets last night, Alpi Şengün had 33 points in 37 minutes. He was 14 of 17 from the field. He hit 2 threes. He had 15 rebounds and 6 assists. Jalen Green, who's been has been struggling with his shot a bit, finished with 23 points. He was 7 of 20 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3. And KJ Martin, who is starting because KPJ is out with a foot injury, he finished with 17 points, 7 rebounds, and Jabari had 14 points and 4 rebounds. Tyree Eason off the bench, 7 points. So listen, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how long. I know at the beginning of the season when we asked Tillman Fertitta, the team's owner, or Rafael Stone, the general manager, what is the measuring? Like, what's the measure of success for this team? How do you quantify that? And neither of them wanted to put a number to it, right? They didn't want to put a number. They said it's not about the number. That's not how you decide. The thought is it is about improvement. So the question is this young Rockets team improving enough for Stephen Silas and this current staff to make it? And I quite frankly don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure if in fact I don't know. Listen, I think most people like Stephen Silas. He's really hard not to like, and not just because of what he's gone through this season. He lost his father recently, and that's been very difficult for any of you who have lost parents. I know, I still struggle with losing both my parents. But just in terms of, the ups and downs of this team, it's got to be incredibly stressful. And so I don't know if he's going to get to make it, right? There's some who say this is fine because we want to make sure that we get in terms of the draft, we're looking at some players that what we're looking at is important in terms of what they could do if in fact they end up with the worst record in the league. And what I remind people about is the worst record in the league doesn't guarantee you the first pick because there's still a lottery. Okay? Still a lottery. So, I was just trying to find something that was sent to me about the draft. But at any rate, Victor Wembanyama, I know many are like, he is a transformational player and the Rockets should do whatever they can to get him. Well, they're going to be in the hunt. But they've got to win some games. If the coach is going to survive, this Rockets team has got to win some games like yesterday. Well, that game's over, but it means that tomorrow's game against the Charlotte Hornets is super, super important. So, we'll see what happens. Hey, good morning, Carolyn. Welcome. You're in California, right? And if you are, I hope that you and your family are safe. I know that there have been, with all of the rain and floods in certain parts of California, it's been really a mess and dangerous. So I'm not sure what part you're in, but I hope that you and your family are safe. Hey, Tony, welcome. Tony says, give all the picks for Sean Payton. Listen, I hear you, but if you gave all the picks, I don't even know if that would make Sean Payton want to come, right? Because this roster's not very good. The roster is not very good. So they've got to shore it up. Now they've got some picks. They've got some cap space. I think they've got $65 million in dead cap space. I'm not Don't quote me on that number. I'll find out, and as we talk more about the draft and free agency, when free agency really kicks in, starts, we'll talk more about what some of those options are and some of those needs. So, give up the draft picks for Sean Payton, but then what's he coaching, right? Because I will tell you guys, remember, without any players, it's hard to be good. It just is. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. James Holiday. Hey, welcome, James, says Silas is a dead man walking. It doesn't look great. I'm sure that the Tillman is probably getting a little impatient. And because I think it's also one of the things that's not helpful. Thank you for sharing that, James. I hope you're wrong. I hope he can survive it, but it's the way they lose. They keep losing. Oftentimes the same way, when they get a lead and they fall apart in the fourth quarter. And I know it's about experience, and I know that they're young, but I think that is the thing that would maybe the thing, if they can't rectify that would be detrimental for his future. But we'll see. Hoping for the best for Stephen Silas, and hope he can. He's so nice. I don't know if you need to be, not irate, but something that kind of gets these players going. I don't think it's not a matter of him losing the locker room. I just think you've got to. Something has to happen. Yeah, James says, I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're wrong too. But I understand that sentiment. So, we shall see. Carolyn says they're safe. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Stay safe. Tony says, Shingun, you hear us refer to him as Alpy all the time. Looks good. Run the offense through him and play dude more than 30 minutes. Well, they're playing him a lot. But here's the other thing about Alpy. And, he had a good night last night. But he's a little bit of a defensive liability at times. I think they are, they're playing him more and more minutes, but also he also gets into foul trouble. Let me see what he ended up with last night. In terms of fouls, he had 5 last night. So, which he played 37 minutes. Only person that played more minutes than him was Jalen. So he played 37 minutes last night. And listen, Tony, you make a great point. One of the questions that people have had is about the rotation. What is it? How is it that Silas is deciding about the rotation, how he uses players? And so let's hear a little bit more before we get out of here from head coach Stephen Silas after last night's loss in Los Angeles, where LeBron James dropped 48 points. I guess I should start the video. Here we go.
Makes me feel old.
Career high for Alfred Şengün goes without saying. He was dominant. What was working for him tonight?
Everything. It was his post-ups. It was his elbow catches. It was the pick and rolls. He was really good in the pocket, and our guys did a good job of finding him in the pocket. He was finishing those with his soft touch. He was making plays for his teammates. Then they switched LeBron on him towards the end, and it slowed down a little bit because of the switching and the physicality and whatnot. But Alpy was sensational on the offensive end.
How do you want him to continue that aggression? You want when Kevin comes back and you guys have the full rotation?
Yeah, I mean, if we can get those pocket passes to him, if he can stay aggressive on the offensive boards like he was, he'll continue to get his post touches. And, he's plays like this, it's hard not to give him the ball. So we got to just make sure that what we do on the offensive end equals what we do on the defensive end. And obviously defensively, we gave up 140 tonight, which was disappointing.
So yeah, it's tough to win games when you are giving up 140 points. But, it'll be interesting when KPJ comes back, if they're able to still, spacing is sometimes a challenge with them. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Tony also says, our guards are so inefficient, though. Reminds me of Francis and Coutinho combo. Yeah, and I think people are like, what do you mean? Because they look at the points that maybe that when KPJ is in and Jalen that they have. Um, yeah, I think that in terms of the quarterback of the team, the point guard, and not that you have to have like a traditional point guard, but I see that role is important, and it depends on how you look at it, and so that obviously has to be. It has to be a concern. And for those of you who reach out to me sometimes and say, what are they going to do with Eric Gordon? He also started last night. He played 31 points. 31 minutes. He finished with 19 points. Uh, had eight assists. He led the team in assists last night. And Eric wants out, right? He wants to be someplace. We've seen him sometimes get frustrated and not have his. We've seen him get frustrated and sometimes not be able to really contain that post game interviews. So yeah, we'll see what happens with him. And James, you make a great you ask a great question. The last time the team went on a run, it was when Silas, unfortunately, was the time that he had lost his father. But John Lucas is like the top assistant, so John Lucas, was in charge, and they went on a little bit of a run, a stretch. They won 5 or 7 games in a row. In that stretch, they beat Phoenix. They beat the 76ers. I don't know if that was with Coach, if Coach was here or not for that. They also defeated the Bucks. I mean, they had some good wins. So maybe John Lucas's personality is obviously a little different from Silas's, and they may need a little of that love. I don't know, but I think that if something doesn't change drastically, pretty quickly, we may find out. So I don't know. It's not what I am advocating for. I'm not really sure what's going to happen, but I think there's a possibility that if this team can't turn it around, and I'm not saying turn it around and get to the playoffs. That's not happening. But they got to get to 20 wins. I think 23 wins. But they got to get some wins now. They've got to start getting some wins before the All-Star break, which is middle of February. So they need some wins. Let's look at their schedule. Let me tell you where they are in terms of their schedule. As I mentioned, they play the Charlotte Hornets at home tomorrow night, and then they're on the road this weekend at Minnesota, and then next week they have 3 games at home. Monday they play Minnesota at home. Wednesday they play the Wizards at home, and Thursday the 26th they play Cleveland at home. So they need some wins, and they need to start tomorrow night. And winning at Minnesota would be great, but definitely those 3 games next week, they've got to get some wins, and winning at home is great because you're in front of your home fans, but they've got to get back in the win column sooner than later. So that's a definite. That's definitely a definite. All right. So listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the wild card weekend. Right? Was that crazy or what? Wild card weekend was wild. There was some great football games over the weekend. So let me go back to wild card weekend. So the 49ers defeated the Seahawks 41-23. But all the other games were really hard fought. The Chargers lost to the Jaguars. The Jaguars defeated the Chargers 31-30 after getting down 24-0 in the first half. After Trevor Lawrence threw 4 picks early, 3 in this quarter, it was grim, right? It looked really grim. And so they were down 27 at one point. They were down 27-0 in the first half. And then they came back. And Trevor Lawrence, who ended up with 288 yards, he was 28 of 47, threw 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, right? Justin Herbert had 273 yards, was 25 of 43, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Listen, it was just it was fun to watch, right? If you're a fan of the Chargers, it probably wasn't fun to watch. That may be a reason that Chargers job could come open. I'm not sure. And then the Dolphins and the Bills. Who expected that game to be as close as it was? I didn't, especially since the Dolphins were starting a third-string quarterback, right? Skylar Thompson. How many of you guys know Skylar Thompson? So that game finished. The Bills won that game 34-31. It was a great game as well. Josh Allen's got to play a lot better if this team is going to beat Kansas City this weekend. And then the Vikings and the Giants. Another pretty exciting game. I know there was a lot of criticism of Kirk Cousins, and it was like 4th and 8, and he threw a 3-yard little pass. But at any rate, the Giants. Listen. People who thought Daniel Jones was not going to make it in this league when the Giants drafted him are now saying, hey, I was wrong. But you've also got to give credit to Saquon Barkley, because what he's able to do for them offensively, it helps what Daniel Jones is able to do. So the Giants beat the Vikings 31-24. And then the Bengals and the Ravens. The Bengals won that game 24-17. The play of the game is obviously when the quarterback is they're down in a goal line play, and he extends to try to put the ball over the plane, and one of the Bengals defenders punches the ball out. Big defensive lineman picks the ball up, runs 97 yards for a touchdown. That became the difference in the game. But so the Bengals advance. I don't know how far the Bengals can go, because their offensive line still can't protect the quarterback. Now, Joe Burrow is able to still get it done, but that's just, I don't know. But that was another game. It was another exciting game, 24-17. One of the big things that people talked about after the game is that not only was Lamar Jackson not playing, but he wasn't even there on the sideline. What does it mean? I don't know what it means, but if the Bengals are going to move on from Lamar Jackson, somebody's got to try to get in the hell of a quarterback. I'm not really sure what that means and what's happening in Baltimore, but that's a conversation. And then, of course, last night, the NFC wildcard game, the Cowboys at the Buccaneers. The Cowboys had won a playoff game. Was it 96 the last time? It was a really long time ago. They went into Tampa with a 13-5 record. Of course, the Buccaneers are 8-10. That's just how bad that division is. But the Cowboys won that game 31-14. They look good. The Cowboys should have won it, right? They were the better team on paper. But the Cowboys don't always do what they should do. So the question was, will they go in to Tampa and be able to get a win? They got a win last night. How about the kicker? What did he miss? 4 extra points? What are you doing? But the final was 31-14. And so was that Tom Brady's last game? Who knows? Was it his last game in Tampa? I would think probably, but is it his last game ever? Not really sure. But we will see what happens. And you are absolutely right, James. That is why they call it wild. And so it was some good football games, and it was fun. Tony says Josh Allen plays a lot of hero ball, takes a ton of risk. He does. And, it worked this weekend. They were able to get away with it against the Dolphins, but they go into Kansas. Is it Kansas City this week? I'm not really sure how much that's going to work moving forward. So this weekend is a divisional round. So it's the Jaguars that go into Kansas City. The Jaguars are playing the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites. The Giants play the Eagles in Philadelphia. The Eagles are 7.5-point favorites. The Bengals play the Bills in New York at Orchard Park, and the Bills are 4.5-point favorites. The Cowboys play the 49ers in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and the 49ers are 3.5-point favorites. I just don't know if that Cowboys team is going to be able to, if they look like they did this weekend, who knows what they could do. But that 49ers defense is pretty good, so we shall see. And James said that was stupid on Hundley's part. Yeah, he was going for it, right? He was trying to make it happen. He was trying to make some magic happen, and it just did not work. Tony says Baltimore should trade for Justin Fields. Same offense and much cheaper quarterback. You know, the idea that the Bears might trade their quarterback is really interesting. I mean, I just think this offseason is going to be fascinating. I don't, what are teams thinking, right? We'll see. We will see what happened. It was a weird game. Alvin says Tom should let it go. Yeah, Tom didn't want to get hit, right? He's never been big on getting hit, but he definitely doesn't want to get hit. And you're going to get hit in this game. So it might be time. It might be time. Yeah, thanks for that. James Buffalo plays Cincy in Buffalo. So that's interesting. And finally, Tony says the trade deadline is in a few weeks. Nobody giving up a first-round pick for Gordon. You're right. I don't see it. I mean, I think you trade Gordon to a team that thinks they have a shot to win and really compete for, obviously, the playoffs and beyond. But I don't know that it's a first-round pick. So we will see what happens. All right, everybody, listen, we are out of time for today. Thank you, as always, for being a part of the show. I want to encourage you to remember, my tagline for my company is your communication is your brand. And just be intentional about the energy that you put into the universe, because that is the brand that people associate with you, because it's what you are communicating. So that's my little tip for today. And finally, Alvin Wright says, NFL, no fun league or not for long. Absolutely. It is the no fun league or not for long. I want to remind you about our sponsors, the World Youth Foundation, in partnership with the African American Male Wellness Agency. The walk is going to be April the 15th. The Mayor Turner, is the honorary chair. We're excited about the work that's going to happen, the resources that are going to be available for screenings and all sorts of great information. And along the way, it's not going to just be that weekend. It's stuff leading up to the walk, the real men, real talk conversations. We are excited about that. And of course, remember, I Love Jinka. You can get it at HEB. Here's where you find it if you're in the store.
Here at HEB, in the Healthy Living Department, the probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yep. Look at a lot of Jinka soda. Look at that. Jinka.
And of course, Kimmy Treats. You can get it at Sunshine's Vegetarian Deli if you are in Houston, but you can get it online. Go to KimmyTreats.com. And remember, everybody, do something kind for yourself. Do something kind for somebody else. Make sure you're registered to vote at all times. That way, when it's time to vote, you don't have to wonder if you can make a deadline. If you're not registered, get registered today. Make sure you're vaccinated, folks. This COVID thing is on the rise. And so I would encourage you, if you're in tight spaces like elevators and stuff like that, just put the mask on. I mean, I am. So take care of you. Take care of the folks around you. And listen. It's 2023, decide something that you want to get done and just make a plan and do it. All right. Thanks for being a part of Chalk Talk. I will see you next week, next Tuesday at 11 a.m. right here on Chalk Talk. In the meantime, I'll see you a bunch of other places. Make sure you let me hear from you. Drop a note in the chat if you're watching the replay. Let me hear from you. If there's something you'd like to see on Chalk Talk, drop me a note. I'd love to be able to give it to you. Have a great week, everybody.